salute our very next special guest to the tee. He's the original farseer without peer who had the audacity to give a card to the hippie that could fling on cue the frisbee far and true on any given day. He's a pinball wizard, an inventing mind, the head video game master blaster, and the kind who can see the sun through an unrelenting blizzard. He's a big thinker with the frisbee tinker that created a game for us all to see that eventually became DDC. And he's the man who also gave the name to this game we all love to play, disc golf all day. He's a prodigious gymnast and software specialist. He teaches, he's been known to test for leeches, and he can jam with the best of them on any good beaches. He's been delivering the mail since Mother's Day 1970, and it's plain to see he's done it without fail. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the tee. He's the man who brought the worlds to lovely and historic Rochester, New York. Jim, the king of the court frisbee, Paul Mary.
Well, some of that was overstated. But
that's awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you. I thought of the immediate one it was Dan Roddick that introduced some of the stuff that you talked about, not me. But
okay.
But I did discover disc golf early on in my playing with a frisbee, and I really liked it. And that's what prompted me to. I read a news. Some newsletter came in, IFA newsletter came in, and they talked about somebody setting up a disc golf course in what was the name of the town? Some town. And I said, hey, look at that. They're playing our game in whatever that town was. And I said, we gotta do a big tournament and see how many people are playing this game. And my fellow frisbee enthusiasts scoffed. They says, we're gonna get people to come to Rochester to play frisbee when they can play frisbee in their own backyard. I said, well, I don't know. We'll give away a big prize. They said, well, what's a big prize? I said, I know. We'll give a car away.
Nice.
And they said, you're crazy. How can you give a car away? Yeah, where are you going to afford that? He says, oh, look, I think the idea would be so unique that people will think it's going to be worth the publicity they can get and all that. And I'll find plenty of people to donate. Well, I did. I found one person that donates really well. Me.
All right, well, we're going to jump into all that later. We're going to build up to that though, for sure. You got lovely and historic, and we look forward to having the official record set straight by you on some of these misnomers that I might have put out there. But first, let's just jump in with the framework and the story of your PDGA number with Maze Man.
Yeah, so everybody we talk to has a story with their PDGA number. Some of them were just matter of fact, like, oh, well, I knew that it was going to be a thing, so I needed a number, or it was for a specific event, and or almost everybody has I could have had a lower number if I had gotten it then. But
yes.
You're going to have a hard time telling me a story like that with number 23. So what's the story with your PDGA number? When did you get it? What prompted it?
Yeah, it was some event somewhere, some frisbee thing. Ed Hedrick was there, and he announced he's forming the Professional Disc Golf Association, or starting up the Professional Disc Golf Association. And he said, anybody want to sign up? It was the first day of signing up for it. Okay. So we got in line, and I was number 9 with Flash Kingsley.
Okay.
And then I realized I didn't have any money. I had to run to the car to get some money. By the time I got back, I was back at number 23. So that's why my number is 23 instead of number 9 or 10.
Well, I'm gonna have to. I always say that number 23 is Michael Jordan's number, but now I got to change that, and I got to say that it's Jim Paul Mary's number because you were there long before Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I've been told that a lot when I say 23. It's, oh, Michael Jordan's number, So.
Nice.
You got to correct
the only basketball.
And say no. That's Jim Paul Mary's number. I'm loaning it to Mike.
That's a great story. Wow.
That's cool because that's ground floor. And again, here's another story. Here's another story about my PDGA number because I got mine so that I could play in the Amateur World Championship in '94. and I got mine's 7477, so I'm way behind you, but not as far behind you as some of the they're closing in on 300,000. So that's
Wow.
pretty impressive.
Wow.
So I'm gonna guess that was 76 when you got that number.
You know, unfortunately, I don't have a memory of the year.
That's all right.
When that first thing, I don't know if there's a year attached to when the PDGA was formed, it would be that year.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty much what we got. So moving on with the framework, you're a member of the Eagle Club. You're a member of the 93 inaugural class of the PDGA, now World Disc Golf Hall of Fame. And you went in with Steady Ed, Tom Monroe, Dave Dunapace, Vanessa Chambers, and Ted Smithers. And Ted Smithers is the only person that I don't know on that list. And that's some serious company there.
And don't forget Stork.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, Stork. I just looked
Yeah,
right over.
right.
Sorry
I mean,
about that. Stork. Don't
those-
get mad at me.
Yeah.
Those are like there's no wonder why you went in with that class. Those are the movers and shakers of the sport that we know and love. The people who created the framework and the parameters and moved it along in certain ways. And this show is about, hopefully there's enough people out there who already know how important and valuable you have been to the game and to the development of flying disc sports. But we hope that through this that we're going to talk more about that kind of stuff. So, but not only are you a member of the PDGA Hall of Fame, right, Mace?
We're inducted in 2022 to the Frisbee Players Hall of Fame as well.
Freestyle.
Oh.
Excuse me, freestyle.
Yeah, freestyle.
Freestyle. Yeah, that was we talked with Dave Marini a couple months ago, and he had a lot of cool stuff to say, and we're going to dig into that a little bit later too, about the way that you had a big influence on the judging of freestyle, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with your induction. I mean, besides the fact that you've been there for a long time and doing it.
Yes,
so.
and that's what I should say. I'm not in the Freestyle Hall of Fame because I knew how to freestyle.
No,
I never became a good freestyler, and I just not. I don't have that kind of flow in my body. I've never was a good dancer or anything like that. I do the hardcore running and stuff like that and playing disc golf, but freestyle, So I was only in there because I helped them form the work, the judging system.
Wow.
Because I used to teach gymnastics, and we had to set up a judging system for gymnastics, and it seemed like that could be adapted to this, because doing a freestyle routine is very similar to the gymnastics routine.
Right.
Sure. That makes total sense.
And that's the kind of it seems to me in the research reading a lot of your writings about this, about how really Frisbee golf back in the day combined two strands. You had the Frisbee culture side where it was they just played with a Frisbee, and then what, like, you came from a golf side that merged. You can now do golf with a Frisbee, and it seems like you brought a lot more of that kind of empirical, rational, almost like a scientific mind to it all. And I guess that really speaks to you being a biology teacher and a teacher in general. Your ability to think of frameworks like that.
Yeah. Now it seems like we're forgetting a major factor in here is Dan Roddick. That first octad that he had was the big thing. He put out this thing about the octad. That was 74.
74.
The early part, and somewhere along the line. Oh yeah, and I found out about that because I had, said we're going to give a car away for a first prize, and he called up and wanted to know all about that. And so the first thing is he sent Flash Kingsley to Rochester to talk to me about what was going on and find out about me and all that, because he's kind of curious.
Right.
He was bigwig on that. They told me about the octad that that first 1974 octet, and I said, "Yeah, man, I got to go to that for sure." And that's where I met the scene, and they met me, and they were going. And I guess I want to fit in a quick little story
Sure.
because it's kind of funny. We went down to New Jersey, and I had a I had a couple of friends that were interested in driving with me, and one of them was my brother-in-law, who was very tall and thin. If you take Dan Roddick walking down some a path and you were going to meet him, my friend is actually brother-in-law coming the other way would be very similar in stature, tall, thin, and all that. So we got to New Jersey and we were walking toward the course, and we were walking 3 or 4 of us abreast. And coming down the other way was a group walking down, and uh, I didn't know. It was the first time I met Dan Roddick in person. I had talked to him on the phone, and we had a big shirt on, Rochester Frisbee Club, so he knew, you where we were. And as we were walking toward him, Dan spotted my brother-in-law, tall, thin, just like him, and he walks up to him and he goes, "Hi, you must be Jim Palmieri," and stuck his hand out to him. He just assumed this little shrimp walking on the end, he must not have anything to do with it. I thought that was a funny story.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's a good one.
While we're here, I want to ask you a quick question. I know I've been reading a lot of the old magazines and a lot of the old publications. Thanks to Flying Disc Museum, they put a lot of that stuff digitized up on the web. That's where I read a lot of your issues of your magazine. But back in the 70s, 74 and 75, Stork was putting out the Flying Disc World newsletter. And at that time, he was called The Stork. Do you remember when he went from The Stork to just Stork?
I don't remember the transition. I just remember he was the Stork, but by the time we got to know each other, people called him Stork. I don't remember the transition. I guess it was when the activities started. Hey, Stork, something like that.
Okay. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But now let's move on with the framework.
All right. So this is a lengthy list, and I'm going to run through it relatively quickly. But this is the other occupations and experiences that you have, Jim. And just so everybody knows, but you're a disc golf consultant. You've been a software test engineer in the past. You were also a video game and pinball machine repair technician. You were an independent business owner. You were water quality bacteriologist and instructor, which I'm not sure the parallel there, but
which one?
They're on the same line.
A trampoline instructor, you said?
Yeah.
Right. No, maybe I was doing it while I had my job as a water bacteriologist. But I don't know.
Well, here's the thing that probably a lot of your friends in Rochester know, but maybe not a lot of the other people know, that one of your star students and protege won a bronze medal in the 1984 Summer Olympics, which is pretty fantastic. As a fan of the Olympics, ever since '76 was when I got into watching the Olympics. And
who was that? I don't
Sorry,
recall.
I can't remember who that was. I didn't write down the name.
Bronze medal in the Olympics.
That's pretty cool, though. 1984. I remember that LA Games. I watched the second half of the LA Games from a hospital bed in Great Falls, Montana, because I'd broken my leg on a harvest crew. Wow. So back then it was 3 channels, and I watched everything I could, and it wasn't a lot, but I caught all of it. It was pretty amazing.
Nice.
So let's see, one more thing, or a couple more things. So that was quite the year for you, and the cheer on the Olympian, and then start planning and running the World Championship, the 3rd ever PDGA Worlds. You were a substitute teacher in Monroe County. You were a 7th grade general science teacher in East Rochester. You were a biology teacher and assistant gymnastics coach. and a human rights activist, and that is one hell of a list, Jim. Did we leave
That is
anything
great.
out?
We
Well,
well we he's an
hardly.
author
Huh?
and you're an author and a publisher. You
Well,
have the chain of events, the origin of evolution of disc golf with Phil Kennedy, and you
right.
also published the magazine Flying Disc Illustrated. Um,
Or
also,
Flying
you
Disc magazine.
Flying Disc magazine.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it didn't
please
have the word
excuse me.
illustrated, right?
Um, Now, is this true? I know that you invented what has become double disc court, but is it true that you coined the phrase disc golf? It was called frisbee golf for the longest time. Is it you who put the disc in
No,
front of the
no,
golf?
no, no. That was
Okay.
strictly Dan Roddick
Okay, good. Good to know.
because he's the one because we were talking about frisbee golf and frisbee this and frisbee that, and he's the one that put the word out. That no, it's not frisbee. It's disc. Frisbee is a registered trademark of Whammo, and Whammo at that time was getting touchy. They thought we were misusing the word, so they put the word out.
Okay.
We don't want to see you writing frisbee. We want to see you writing disc. You know.
Well, I noticed everybody was very careful to put either trademark or an
Yeah,
asterisk on the bottom.
yeah.
Frisbee is a registered trademark.
Yeah, Whammo just was out protecting their rights.
So now let's start with kind of let's start at the beginning of flying disc history. Let's start in 1958. Whammo acquires the Pluto platter or the mold of the Pluto platter and starts putting that out and really investing a lot of money in it. The Healy brothers discover this. They live in Minneapolis at the time, and they discover the Pluto platter, and they have a lot of fun with it. And they create. They have their submarine. I think they have a cottage in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. They basically create the game of guts in
Yes,
1958, and
yes,
they decide tongue in cheek to run this thing. They're going to call it the International Frisbee Tournament.
yes,
And here we are 66 years later, and they're still running. Well, they're not still running, but it's still being run. So 1958 is a pretty pivotal year, but the creation of the IFT is one of the bigger things. In 1964, this is I'm leading up to something here. They create what's called the International Frisbee Association. Again, tongue in cheek. These were pretty cheeky monkeys, these Healy brothers. When did it go from being this tongue in cheek parochial regional thing to actual International Frisbee Association? Tell us about that.
hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure of the dates because that was preceded me, and
Right.
when I found them, they were International Frisbee Association, and I
Okay.
do believe my book talks about how those naming things came. I'm not sure exactly,
Okay.
but I do know there's a lot of that type of stuff covered in my book.
Now I know that your first experience with the game is 1970, but surely the word frisbee had permeated your consciousness before that. Do you remember the first time that you became aware of what a frisbee was?
Yeah, yeah, Mother's Day, 1970.
Okay, so that's where it all starts. Okay,
Well, that's when I found out. You know.
so let's just skip right to that part. Here it is,
Okay.
Mother's Day, 1970, and you have your brother. How many people
Yes,
in the family?
I was trying to. My two brothers-in-laws were in town for the Mother's Day celebration and all that kind of stuff,
Okay,
and they were in the house watching TV or something, and I had my brother out there because I wanted to throw this frisbee back and forth, and I was trying to play catch with him or doing. He wanted to throw the frisbee. I wanted to play touch football. I was trying to organize a touch football game, and he brought a
okay,
frisbee. I said, put that thing down. Let's toss the frisbee, the football. So we're throwing back and forth to see. I want to see who could force the other person farther back. And he got tired of that real fast. He goes, no, let's put that down. Here, do this. I said, oh. And then I was amazed at how he could make that fly from one end of the yard to the other, which by today's standard would be very short, but by
sure.
my standards and that standard, that seemed long. And then I couldn't throw it. I mean, every time I threw it, it'd turn over and go hit the ground and roll. And he had a hard time showing me how to hold my wrist and like I would teach somebody now, try to teach them how to flip it, whatever, just roll. So I had a hard time learning it. So we got together close, playing close. And I always like to make a game out of things. And I said, let's play with two frisbees at the same time. And we were tossing them back and forth. And I got the idea. I says, hey, let's try to make the other person touch both at the same time. And so the very first time I even learned how to throw a frisbee, I invented double discord.
Wow. It goes all the way back to the first day. That's awesome.
The very first day that I learned that, I actually threw a frisbee.
But you call it court frisbee at the time, and you were thinking more
frisbee.
like, did you get the court from like volleyball or some other kind of equipment?
Well, yeah, that sort of came into being because we were standing, a certain, it was 19 feet apart, and we were throwing to each other. And I that's when I got the idea to make somebody touch both frisbees at the same time to time your throw. And when I threw to him and he caught it, then I threw the next one. He didn't even try to get it. He let it go by. I say, oh, hey, you got to at least try to get it. And so we measured how far apart we were. It was 19 feet because we had to go into dinner. We want to come back and play the game. So we put circles around. I drew a circle around each person. Said, if it's in that circle, you have to try for it. You have to go for it. So if he touched it with the other one, it was touching two frisbees, so we got 2 points. And it was just, the game was a lot of fun, and so we just fine-tuned it. And I taught it to my friends, and it just sort of became the game. And we called it court frisbee, and it became double discord.
Was your mom angry at you guys for spending the whole Mother's Day out in the backyard inventing a new frisbee game?
No, she wasn't that angry because she, forced us to come in. She used to yell, hey, come on, dinner time, So we went in, had dinner, and then went back out and played again. That was Mother's Day, 1970. The origin of double discord.
That's amazing.
That's the time that I ever threw a frisbee.
How old were you then in 1970?
Well, I was born in 42, so
28 years old.
So,
yeah, I guess that's it.
Nice. Wow. That's really amazing. That first time you played it, you invented the game. So then was it in 70 you were playing? So I got a quote here from Paul. It said, playing our court frisbee game on a regular basis led us to increase our frisbee activity in general. In August of 1970, we discovered that we could play the game of golf with our court frisbee discs. So tell us about that revelation. Yeah,
that's I guess the story there is pretty quick. We were playing our court frisbee game at a state park near Syracuse, New York. The family was having a picnic, and then we were playing the game, having fun. I was told we got to go, come for dinner time. They're ready to serve. So we're walking back toward the site. Now, you don't just walk with a frisbee if you can throw it, So I saw a tree over there. I says, hey, I'll bet you I can get my frisbee to the base of that tree in fewer throws than you can. And my brother said, oh, I'll bet you not, So we both threw and we got relatively close. Both threw our second shot. And that's when my brother said, how are we going to know when we're at the tree? I says, well, if you land it within a frisbee length of the base, then you're at the tree. So we both succeeded at 3. We wanted to break the tie. And we said, okay, let's go to that tree over there. And we 3 again. So I said, we got to break this tie, make it harder. And I looked around. I said, okay. And I looked around, and there was a little playground, and there was a little children's sandbox, a small one. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw it, try to see who can throw their frisbee into that sandbox in fewer throws.
Nice.
And I said, but we're going to make it tough. We're going to have to go around that tree there, go around to the left and around and get it in. And then,
Create
So we
some
can play
Mando.
some Mandos too, huh?
yeah, as I started to throw, I said, hey, this is like a dog leg in golf. Hey, you know what we're doing, John? We're playing golf. And we were fascinated by it. From that point on, every we pick trees, pick dog legs, pick targets, try to find something to throw it into. And
That's amazing.
compet-
So you invented two different games, or at least with as far as you knew, you invented two different games in your first 2-3 months.
No, the first play is when they got double disc court.
Right.
But the second play is when we were playing the games, the double disc court, and then discovering that I can play golf on the way home.
But
That's
that's two separate disciplines in 4 months, 3 months. That's amazing.
Yeah, I guess it was Mother's Day, which is usually in May, right?
Yeah.
And this was August
Yeah.
of 1970.
There you go.
So that's another reason why you are just an inventive and fertile mind for sure. So 1971, the winter season approaches. You are thinking this is so much fun. You and your brother, the fraternal competitive juices are getting you guys to play a lot more. And you start playing with friends and family, and you informally create the Rochester Frisbee Club.
Yes.
Do you remember how many of you were at the beginning? This is going back a long time in pre-computer records.
7 or 8 people,
Okay.
A small group. We started meeting every Tuesday night at a park. We had laid out, trash cans and stuff, 18 holes of disc golf. I think it was only 9 in the beginning. We just went around twice.
Okay.
And then at some point we started, making it a full 18 holes. So,
And so
I don't remember specifically. My book has a lot of, I'm
Sure.
glad I have that book. I'm
yeah.
awfully glad that I spent the time and effort writing it, because I forgot a lot of stuff. If that book reminded me, I wouldn't remember.
Well, I wish we had a copy of the book, but I've cobbled together a lot of your writings from around various sources of the internet. So, this is we've got what you've already said. Now, it's interesting that you've got some adherents, you got some frisbee freaks around you, you got some peeps that you've gathered, to the point where you decide, hey, this Labor Day, why don't we have this? We've already got the Rochester Frisbee Club. Why don't we have our first Frisbee Championships? Do you remember that?
Well, yeah, yes. Somebody brought the IFA newsletter, which I didn't even know existed.
Oh,
I
nice.
said, look at that. There's a newsletter. And in it said, where? I have it written in the book, sir. But they said somebody was set up a Frisbee golf course in their local park. I said, hey, look at it. They're copying our game. and this was 1974 now.
Okay.
Wow.
And I said, I guess it was 73 when they brought that newsletter. I don't know. I'll have it. The specifics don't matter. But I said, look, they're playing our game in Devon, PA. That's what it was. They're playing our game in Devon, PA.
Wow.
We got to do a big tournament and see how many people are playing the game. And he told me, you're not going to get anybody to come. I says, yeah, we'll do it. We'll give away a big prize. And let's give a car away for first prize. I said, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to pay for that? He says, I don't know. I think it's such a unique idea that I would get a lot of people to donate money for it. And as I said, I found one person that would donate a lot of money. Me. I was so determined that if they saw it happen. So by this time it's 1974, and I advertised. I saw the IFA newsletter, and I put a thing in the IFA newsletter that we're going to have a big tournament, and we're going to give a car away for first prize. And of course, Dan Roddick called up real quick when he saw that. And he talked and sent Flash Kingsley to Rochester, New York, and we had a nice discussion about Frisbee and all that and what we're going to do. And they told me about the first Octad in 1974. You got to come down to that. So we went to that, and from then on, it mushroomed. His Octad started the whole ball of wax. And then
Sure.
me following up the same year with giving a car away for first prize brought a lot of attention. Just who's giving a car away for first prize? Wow, Frisbee must be something. So we drew in enough people to go back to talk to their friends, and they were playing the game. You know, they learned double disc court and disc golf, and so it just were fun stuff to do, and it just grew. You know, that first Octad was a biggie, brought in people from all over the place, and that became a revered yearly event.
And they call it the Octad because there were 8 events in total.
Yes, eight events. You know,
Yeah.
Dan had the presence of mind to show all the things you can do with a disc.
And this was the first event. I mean, the IFT had, in addition to guts, they had distance, they had MTA, they had accuracy, but this was the event where everybody played the whole over. It was the birth of the overall.
Yeah. See, it was IFT, of course, that helped set this in Dan Roddick's mind.
Right.
That Octad was an extremely important event, and it drew me in, and I got real excited about it.
Well, that moment of when Stork met Jim, that's a historic moment and a historic photographic worthy moment too.
Yeah, and the fact that Stork won the car.
Yeah.
Between the fact that he won the car and was involved in this overall stuff, and I was, involved with my disc golf. It was like a catalyst. It brought lots of people in. And every time people came to a tournament, they took it home and started, and it just mushroomed from there.
So Mace, let's dig right into it. Let's look at there it is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the AFDO, Mace.
Yeah. So that first AFDO, I offered a Datsun B210 as first prize.
Look at that.
That's amazing. What year? So what year is the car, and what year that was in?
1974.
It was a 74 model too.
Yeah, and yeah, 74 Datsun B210, and Dan won it, and he was the right one to win it because he was poised to go. With promoting disc sports, he was very into disc sports.
So Dan Roddick is many people may not understand how important he is to all of flying disc sports, and he's like
key.
The key. He's the keystone of the whole arch. But yeah. when you were preparing for the AFDO, you wanted to have a big meet in order to see who else was out there, and you wanted to make a big prize to draw in the big players. But that wasn't the only motivation. You wanted to get the big players in because nobody locally could beat Doug Correa, and you wanted to see who out there could beat Doug. Tell us about the first time you met Doug Correa.
Oh, that was easy. I taught 7th grade. He was one of my 7th grade students.
Oh, wow. I see. You've known him the whole time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I taught 7th grade East Rochester Junior High School. I met Doug Correa. And then, so we knew each other from that. And I used to go to a pub in East Rochester. And one night he was in there. We were talking about, Frisbee. He said, yeah, I like Frisbee. And I told him about our Frisbee gathering, because I had a gathering every Friday night and stuff like that. He came. I was amazed at his skills and all that. He came over to St. John Fisher College. I couldn't believe how he could throw the frisbee, how far he could throw it, and all that. And it was pretty amazing.
Wow.
And that was part of wanting to get a big tournament and give a car away to see how many other people were doing that like that.
How cool would that have made you feel to give that car to Doug?
Oh, that was great. I was glad that he won it.
But I mean, if you could have given it to Doug Correa, wouldn't that have been just like icing on the cake?
Yeah, that's right. He didn't win it. It was Dan Roddick that won it. Oh, I was hoping he would win it.
Yeah.
But he didn't. Well,
Yeah, I would imagine all the locals were rooting for him.
Yeah, we were rooting for him, but Dan Roddick, of course, was a very skilled player.
One of the funny. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Mace.
Yeah.
Oh no, go right ahead, Paul. I'll come in behind you there.
I was just going to talk.
No, he was very, very skilled player. Nobody came close to him.
Nice.
And these were all the best, in the country at the time.
Let's talk about the targets for that event. What kind of targets were you using there on that event?
I made a 2-foot square, cardboard boxes, 2 foot on a side, 6 inches high, 6 or 8 inches, I think and you had to throw the frisbee into it. And the people came to this tournament, and some of them were very upset. Says, "What? That's not how you play the game. You hit trees." The IFT people, the guts people, they played a lot of disc golf by throwing to trees or poles, or hit trees or poles. And I said, no, golf is you throw it into a target, you throw it into a hole. This is disc golf. So we had a little discussion there. And I remember Jack Roddick, Dan's father, came to my rescue. He says, "Hey guys," "this guy is putting up a car for first place. He has a way to do it. If you don't like it, you can go home. You don't have to play." He set them in their place.
That pretty much covers it there.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we had the tournament, and people did like throwing it into a target instead of hitting trees. So they thought that was more golfish. So at that point, anytime I played disc golf and further tournaments, and also threw into things. And that little square box came and turned Ed Hedrick on, but he thought hitting a pole was the thing. Went into 1975, a year later, he had the first the La Mirada course. He built a poles, and we all had to hit poles.
Right.
We didn't like that because it wasn't definitive. You throw a disc and it landed close to it and bounced off it. By the time you got there, you didn't know whether it bounced off it or landed there or what, So it just seemed the definitive thing was to throw it into something. So that caught on.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. So
difference.
So basically, the difference in course design between the Octad courses and or the Octad course and your course was basically the target. They were playing at objects. You were playing into a hole. So it was like a frisbee perspective versus a golf perspective.
Yeah.
And that totally makes sense. And I like the evolution there. Definitely. So you requested sponsorship from Whammo, and were they anti frisbee golf? Did they not want to support? I mean, how did that go? Do you remember?
No, they didn't want to give any money away for our car. They
Oh,
didn't want to
okay.
pay for it. But they quickly saw that Dan Roddick's activities and my activity with giving a car away drew a lot of interest. So they came around pretty quick. And I don't know exactly. I'm just glad I wrote that book because I forget it all. I can't spit it out. I have to go to the textbook just like anybody else does.
Okay.
Well, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. So I have two questions about the car.
Okay.
Do you remember how much you paid for it?
Yes, I think it was $1,800.
And so obviously
1,800.
you took a loan out on that. How long did it take you to pay it off?
It's hard to tell because I made payments on it for a while, and I ran into financial problems, and my attorney said, "Jim, you have nothing. You can't. You have to declare bankruptcy." So I declared bankruptcy, and everything got paid off.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I don't know how long or how much I had to actually pay, but it all led to my financial ruin. And after bankruptcy, I learned my lesson and went forward and did things more normal.
Now, did you guys have the frisbee and chess store before or after?
Flying disc and chess shop. It definitely, boy, I'd have to do some research on that. I could.
Okay.
It was 1974 when the tournament. I'm sure the flying disc and chess shop came after that. I didn't have any. I wasn't there to bring people to.
Here's a photo to refresh your memory and to show the world there.
Yeah, flying disc and
There's
chess shop.
Jim and John together
Yep,
standing
my brother
outside.
John with the big hair and taller.
Jim's the better looking one.
Well,
But now where this was a brick. This was
So
a
was your
store.
brother?
Huh?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that was my younger brother who introduced me to frisbee.
That was my question.
Yeah.
And was this downtown Rochester? Where was this?
No, that was a small village of East Rochester.
Okay.
East Rochester, New York, where I taught school. That's where I taught 7th grade.
Nice.
So you had turned on a lot of the people, certainly a lot of the school kids. Did you have a chance? I know that you had met Doug in the bar and you talked frisbee later. But while you were teaching, did you talk about disc or just about frisbee in general? Did you share that with the kids?
At
No.
that time when I was teaching, I don't see that was.
Oh, so the teaching was before you found out about
Yeah,
frisbee.
that was before.
Okay.
Jeff Hungerford and Doug were in my same class. My 7th grade class.
Wow.
Yeah, so they both came out to my frisbee activities, and they both got involved.
That's
they both
incredible.
They flew, and when we got Doug Correa over to St. John Fisher College, we couldn't believe how he could throw. I met him in a bar, and we were talking. He says, "Yeah, we play frisbee every Friday night or something like that." And when he came over, I couldn't believe how far he could make it go.
And then Jeff Hungerford, of course, went on to Colorado and was a real great player out there. So, look at you. The roots of the tree has got branches that extend very far, my friend.
Right. It was like little branches that went out, and they both did a lot. But Dan Roddick was the kingpin. There's no question about it.
Well, we're hoping that we could get Dan on the show as well to put him in the hot seat, talk about him all that.
His octad really helped kick everything off. And it was just a coincidence that I was doing my my tournament with the car. So
74 is a big year because you have first the octad, then the AFDO, then the WFC. And it's really at the WFC where Ed sees all the top pros just buzz about the free car. And then that's when his eyes start to sparkle with the idea of, hey, maybe I could turn this into a promotional opportunity. Maybe this could be a money-making opportunity for myself.
Yeah. Ed was a little upset because he was doing that first WFC in 1974. And he was upset that I was giving a car away for first prize. He thought I was going to take away from his thing.
Right.
And when Dan Roddick found out that I wasn't invited to the WFC, that was part of the reason. He didn't want me to have anything to do with me.
Okay. So, wow.
in the very beginning, we didn't get along too well. Well,
But you guys patched things up,
oh
obviously.
yeah. Well, we,
Okay.
because obviously Ed Hedrick and Dan Roddick and the conglomeration there, that was the kernel that exploded the sport of frisbee
Yeah.
and disc golf, all disc sports.
Well, through all of our conversations, it's becoming more and more clear how vitally important Dan Roddick has been to the
Oh yeah,
continuation of the sports. I mean, after Ed stepped away and after Whammo sold it, Dan
yeah,
really kind of up even up to the years when up to Whammo selling it, Dan was really kind of having to play both sides of the field, as a player and
yeah,
organizer, and as a a paid management level in Whammo. That was a tough balancing act for him. He could have used a gymnast's advice there.
yeah.
So listen,
And,
1975. We last the year of the 70s. We're going to dwell on here.
yeah,
The way that the tour looks is you've got the indoor Ann Arbor tournament
yep.
in, I guess, still in the
Mar-
winter time or maybe early spring.
It was March.
March. Okay.
Yeah,
Octad, AFDO, the IFT, and the Canadian Open. And this is a good segue. I have a photo. I can't access it because I can only share stuff that I have online. But my friend Wayne Kahn, longtime frisbee player here in Toronto and on the island, and one of our guests 2 years ago, he sent me a photo of you organizing or helping to organize and run a frisbee event on the Toronto Island in 1979.
yeah. What was the name of the guy?
Wayne Kahn.
Hmm.
He was
Did I know him? I must have.
skinny Trinidadian fellow with a big afro at the time in the 70s. Very funny, always smiling, really nice guy.
Yeah.
But your connection with Toronto, talk about that, please.
Well, my connection with Toronto.
When
Because
did that first start?
relatively early on, I'm trying to remember. Oh, the
Okay.
Toronto was it? What was the name of it? Toronto Open. Toronto had a big tournament,
Okay.
and they they all looked to me to help run the freestyle because I had developed the judging system and all that, and I knew the format, how to run a freestyle tournament. And so
Okay.
I sort of became the go-to person if they wanted to have a freestyle event.
Okay.
Uh,
So they
uh,
would call in the heavy hitter, and you would drive
yeah,
up around the lake.
yeah, and it reminds me of one time we went. We were going to somebody seemed negative toward me. Uh, we 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 came into this place. There was going to be an indoor freestyle tournament, and before I even opened my mouth, he came to me. He says, "Okay, Jim, I want you to know I'm running this tournament. I don't want. I'm running this tournament. You stay out of it." he was. He thought I was coming to try to take over or something. The last thing in the world I wanted to do was run a tournament if I didn't have to.
That's a good point, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember who it was at this time or who was running that tournament or whatever. It's long gone, but that it was. I was just taken aback. He thought I was negative to.
I'll take the time. I'll take the day off. No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. So
now, final question from the 70s here. Dave Marini enters the Rochester freestyle scene in 1974, thinking that he could make a big impression at the AFDO, and he gets his hiney handed to him. Now he quickly became an integral member of the Rochester Frisbee Club.
right.
You guys were friends, were you not? Pretty fast
Yeah.
friends to
Well, he
start.
came to the first tournament. The first big tournament there when I gave the car away. He was part of the tournament,
Right.
and I guess that's where he met Doug Correa. They
Okay.
became they became the key freestyle. They really took the freestyle very fast.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact steps, and the timing of it, all that, but they were key to freestyle.
Wasn't
he
it?
started the internet. He started the Freestyle Players
Freestyle Players
FPA.
Association. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Wasn't it
got
him
that
that said
rolling.
to us that he really thought he and his friends really thought they were great until they went to the Octad and saw all
Yeah.
those other guys playing and couldn't
Yeah.
believe how many people were playing, but then also how good they all were as well. So
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the level of difference. Doug Correa and Dave were outstanding, and I guess I'm going to have to read my books to get the actual timeline of it. But
that's all right.
yeah, Dave, Dave Marini and Doug Correa became an item in freestyle. They were associated with freestyle.
I think they were named with the Velasquez brothers for best routine of the 70s
Yeah,
from the 1970s 19 late 70s routine. And that's going to segue in nicely. Our guest next week is going to be Bill Wright, who took over
yeah,
the FBA from Dave Marini and also kind of carried the Flying Disc promotional ball as well. But let's stay with Dave Marini and 1980, shall we, Mace?
Yeah. So do you remember the Sonoma Super Frisbee Conference?
I wasn't part of that.
No, but
You
Sonoma,
weren't.
Dave.
yeah, Sonoma was a key part of development of frisbee and freestyle. But I had nothing to do with Sonoma whatsoever.
So it was Dave Marini and the coverage. And
Yeah,
do you what did that conference signify to you? I mean, was that a turning point there, I guess?
yeah. As I said, I really wasn't involved on it, and I think you know the ball has already was rolling, and that became that was a result of the ball. The disc was flying.
Uh,
It was already going. And Dave Marini had an extreme impact on getting. He started the Freestyle Players Association.
yeah.
And that was a
But it
big.
was that conference really, just to kind of put it in context for people, early in 1980. I think it was in late
Yeah,
January of 1980, and basically Whammo's hold on the flying disc world was absolute, at least when it came to the NAS and
in
the
the
World
early days.
Frisbee Championships. And so this was an attempt by player driven organizations or player
Yes.
driven ideas to like how can we create different standards and that can maybe open up the sport to different manufacturers, because not everybody loved there were some discs that were coming out that people preferred more, say for distance or for
Yeah.
freestyle, right?
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, there's no question about it. Certain discs caught on, and they were the favored discs. Others, you know, just didn't pass muster.
I mean, I think it was in 1979 and 1980 that the Sky Styler came out, and that was what all the freestyle players wanted to play. And so, the creation of the Freestyle Players Association took away, an individual company-driven, product-specific event to okay, let's just adapt to the best possible disc on the
Yeah.
market.
Right.
It's we now we're embarrassed by how many disc manufacturers there are out there. We've got an abundant supply of them, and we didn't think about it. But back then, as you said, Whammo was very litigious, and they pursued people, and also Ed Hedrick was also very litigious too, wasn't he?
Yeah. You see, I'm trying to get the picture. Whammo was it, and then what was that? Jim Kenner. Jim Kenner was he created what, a disc,
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Sky Styler.
Sky
this guy's
Style, yeah, and that there was friction. Of course, Whammo was, they're taking our business, the type of thing. I'm just there was some friction there, but nothing bad. Everything went kind of smooth. I mean, it just grew. The Jim
Smooth like the
Kenner was
bottom of that
a
Sky
big factor
Styler.
at the growth. Dan Roddick. I just don't have it all in my mind right now.
That's all right,
Okay.
Jim. Don't sweat it.
Yeah.
We'll prompt you a couple more times with a couple more things here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You ask away. Whatever I remember, I'm going to give you.
Okay. Well, let's leave the beveled edge days behind. Before we do, let's note you did win two world titles at the World Frisbee Championships. You were the 79 and 80 Masters Disc Golf World Champion. And
Yeah.
then also in 1981, you won the World Senior Championships, the Masters Disc Golf Championship. Sorry, you're the Masters Disc Golf Champion at the World Senior Championships in 1981. That's a great 3 years you were enjoying as a player and as a promoter and as a publisher and as a man about the Frisbee town. But as we go from the last days of disco into 1983, Mace, what happens there?
Well, it was a pivotal year, and the impact of the beveled edge was huge. So, as a sports enthusiast and an avid ball golfer, were you also enthusiastic about the emergence, and were you ready to embrace this new technology with the beveled edge? Was that something you really enjoyed, or did you see that as a detriment? Because we've heard folks say it both ways. Some folks really loved it when the beveled edge came out, and then like Cheryl Newland told us that her friends really didn't like it all that much. So, how did you feel about it?
Well, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was any progress in it, just it could fly that far and all that kind of stuff. I had no negative feelings whatsoever. You know,
Okay.
Whammo was a little chagrin, but then they eventually came in with. I believe they came in with some beveled stuff later on.
Yeah,
It
without a
wasn't-
doubt.
But
But
no, I had no problems whatsoever with the disc technology. I was all for letting people come up with the best things they can come up with.
now we've already talked about the Summer Olympics, but 1984 saw the Worlds come to Rochester. This is the third ever PDGA Worlds. When did you get the idea that, hey, I hosted the AFDO? This is the 10-year anniversary. Let's host the Worlds. Is that how that thinking went?
It must have been '84. I'm I think they worked with me. They asked me to help.
Okay.
I I I I don't. Again, I don't remember the exact thing, but I remember 1984 was a biggie.
You must have been
10th
super.
anniversary.
You must have been excited to have the Worlds coming to Rochester, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think they there was I think there was a few people who were a little nervous about
Understandably
things,
so.
but for the most part, they wanted it and they looked forward to it, and I thought it went off pretty well. I mean, I didn't get any negative feedback from
Right.
from anybody.
Well,
And
from what we heard, everybody's great praise about the '84 Worlds. Obviously, we talked to Sam, youngest ever world champion, won it there. Do you remember your first impressions of Sam Ferens?
yeah, a guy who could throw it just super far.
But he was a little string bean, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a little string bean, but I remember there was one hole from the top of a hill all the way down into a tree. Most people would take 4 or 5 shots to get there. Well, he threw one shot from the tee right to the base of the target, and everybody was talking about the Sam Ferentz throw. It was.
Really? So that
I
lived
did.
on.
I didn't actually get to see it myself. I
Yeah.
just heard it.
But
big
you heard the
roar.
story over and over again.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that Sam Ferentz throw was a big thing for that, period of time.
What about
Absolutely.
Johnny Sias? You remember Johnny Sias from that event?
I don't. I just knew who he was and his name, but I didn't have a lot of contact with him. So
And how-
I
now, one
can't
one of
remember.
one of the people from Toronto that you probably would have met somewhere along the way, Mike Sullivan. He kind of came in fifth that
Mike
year.
Sullivan. Right? He was a key figure.
Do you remember the first time you met him? you remember an early
Well,
story from him?
yeah. The very first time I met him, I can't remember, the details. All I know is that Mike Sullivan came into being and he could throw it like a banshee.
Right.
You know, uh, he was he was a key figure into the forward motion of frisbee throwing and freestyle and stuff like that.
Well, he was a very good freestyler too, and that's one thing that
Yeah,
people around here especially don't understand is
yeah,
they just know of him as a disc golfer, but he was part of that young Canadian dynamic team with
yeah,
Kevin Sparkman and
yeah,
Brian McElwain that really and Pat Chartrand, those guys.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say we had a very good rapport with Toronto, and we worked
Yeah.
together real well. And
Well, we when we talked to Dave Marini in advance of that, I asked a couple of the freestylers around here, especially Pat Chartrand, and they couldn't say enough about Dave Marini and yourself really being key elements in getting this scene really developed and forwarded. So, thanks on behalf of all the Toronto golfers. Thanks for all the help that you did for organizing and inspiring.
yeah, well, I feel the same about them. They had a lot of organization and big tournaments. They hosted big tournaments and all that kind of stuff. I remember
Well,
trying to
that
get through customs
oh
going into Toronto with all my boxes of discs. She says, what are these? What are that? And I told her, well, I'm helping to run a tournament. I run the tournament. She says, you're not going to leave them there, are you? I said, no, no, no. This is valuable equipment. This is my equipment. I have to bring them home. They were really concerned that I was, smuggling frisbees into
Yeah,
Canada.
well,
well, you kind of
an
were.
unmentioned member of our group had that similar experience several years later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They look at
Very
what you
very
got.
cold, wet, rainy night at the Buffalo Crossing.
Ah,
It was I might have been actually what's north Saint what's up there in the corner north of Buffalo. I think it might have been that
Lewiston,
crossing.
Lewiston.
Lewiston.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who that was, but it wasn't a fun night.
Ah,
All right, well, Mace, let's just jump into that's a good segue between big events in Toronto.
Yeah, well, so Toronto, definitely one of my favorite disc golf cities, and 1987 they had the World Championships there, but they also had the Canadian PDJ Championships, and you won the Masters in that in that event,
ah.
1987.
Well, I don't remember the specifics of it, but I did have some success at winning my divisions in my area there. But
Well, yeah, so you took first in that event, and then the next weekend was the World Championships, and you tied for seventh with Gary Lewis, two strokes behind Al Beaver, and 10 behind third place Captain Snap,
yeah,
and 20 off the winner Snapper.
yeah.
Do you have any memories about that event?
Well, I remember when Captain Snap and the boys came in. My candle started to fizzle. you know, in the early days, I, I I was one of the few that had practiced enough to have the skills to win. They caught up with me, put me in my place, which is rightfully so. They were very good. Yeah, and I have nothing but the highest esteem for Toronto and their activities. They really were a key figure in the development of frisbee. Dan Roddick and the Octad
Right on.
and Toronto, that combination. And it, you know, like I say, people came to our tournaments, went home, and started doing it at their homes, and it just spread and spread.
Well,
I suppose
Toronto was certainly
California had a group.
we were certainly blessed to have the presence for a little while at least of Ken Westerfield and Jim Kenner at the same time, and they
Yeah,
did for the Toronto, the Canadian scene more than anything, and arguably the whole concept, the idea and the action of freestyle invented by those two here in Toronto. Um, Sad to have lost them, but just to have their imprint here was a great thing for the scene, and also Gail McCall. Gail McCall was pivotal in the early days as a Toronto legend, and really made her presence felt in all the North America meets that she attended. Do you remember meeting Gail the first time?
I don't remember the very first time that I met her. I
Do you
just
remember what your
remember
impression was of her?
oh, that she was extremely skilled frisbee player.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was an integral part. I say the whole Toronto area. They were critical to the development of disc sports. Very very big part. Now, Ken, you mentioned Ken Westerfield.
Yeah.
Is he still with us?
Oh, he
Yep.
is. He's just not here in Toronto with us.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
not.
He's
Okay.
still
Yeah,
living
he's out
Haven't
down
seen him
uh,
lately.
Tucson, I think, isn't it?
Oh,
southeast of there actually. There's like an old west town where like they use a they use for there's a lot of set westerns filmed out there in that city. I can't remember the name of it though. It's southwest of Tucson. My buddies all went out there and did a bunch of climbing earlier this year, and now
Hmm.
the name slips my mind. But yeah, he's still out there doing well.
We'd like to have him on the show too, because that's he was quite the figure. He cut quite the swath through the crowds, tall and with the big beard and the long flowing hair, and usually no t-shirt, and you know his
yeah.
mad frisbee skills. When you look at the photos of everybody, then everybody would just they're iconic. And I wish I had the photos here to show of you, because there's some great I don't know if you remember those old historic photos. You're playing DDC. It's kind of photo taken from below, looking up, and you're look like you're throwing an air bounce. You had quite the photogenic afro back in the 70s, my
Yes,
friend.
I did.
And in
Not
fact,
like now.
to that
You
point,
know, we're
Yeah,
we're
yeah, right.
we're working with the same comb.
Yeah.
so to that point, I want to show this. This is
Oh
from
yeah.
the 1976 World Frisbee Championships. Looks like you're maybe playing DDC here. Do you remember?
Either DDC or an MTA. The way I'm looking up,
Okay, right.
I can't remember what it was, but I remember doing both.
They really did it right there for those championships. It was great that those days that Whammo put a lot of money into the sport, for as much as they had the autocratic reach of just having Whammo products. They certainly backed it up with a lot of money, didn't they?
Oh yes, yes. I mean, they put a lot into it, and I guess they got a lot out of it. They realized more activity like that, there's going to be more sales. It has to be.
Absolutely. There's some
Yeah.
great savvy. I mean, Steady Ed and Dan working together, that's a pretty dynamic team in terms of promotion and explosion of the game.
Right, and I mean all of that evolved into. I mean, disc golf was the main thing that grew worldwide. You know what I mean? At least nationwide. I mean, there's disc golf courses everywhere. So yeah,
So
whatever.
now,
Yeah, and I looked up the other day. There's 15,000 plus courses on the in the ground now,
Wow.
wow,
and that number's probably even higher just because of the consideration of private courses as well. But that's pretty amazing.
that
Yeah,
is
I
huge.
I
mean,
can remember when somebody was saying, "Wow, there's over 100 courses," and we are going, "Wow" about that.
I
So
remember when it was wow that Texas had 100 and just within the state itself. That was a huge wow.
there's over 500 now in Texas.
yeah,
I was in the same search that popped up as well.
Dang.
So it's like 546 or something like that. It's pretty crazy. Really
So
yeah.
amazing.
I mean,
we
so the early frisbee stuff led to a worldwide sport that's gonna stay around forever.
Now, before we let you go, I want to talk to you about freestyle. I know you said that
Ah,
you didn't consider yourself very good, at least not enough to as a player to get into the Hall of Fame, but you did have a non-major win at the 1979 IFA North American Series in Toronto in the Masters division in freestyle. You also had three finals appearances, one with our good friend and friend of the show, Mark Horn, in 1994. Do you remember playing with Mark Horn in 1994?
I don't remember. Oh, I being at the same tournaments with him, yes. But did I do played with him in freestyle? You mean?
Yeah.
Huh? I don't remember the details of that. No.
Okay. Okay. We're
That was
putting you on the
unfortunate.
spot a lot here. I do apologize, and thanks for being such a good sport with it all.
Yeah.
But we are absolutely thankful to you for everything you've done already. Mace, you want to come in on something here?
Oh yeah, we cannot get away tonight without talking about the van in Cozad, Nebraska. I know you weren't there in Cozad, Nebraska, but we've heard this story from two perspectives, and I want to hear it from the van owner's perspective. Let's hear that story about how you flew out of Colorado and left your van with your friends to take it back to Rochester, and it never made it out
That's
of
what I was trying to
Nebraska.
remember. I had to get back. Yeah, for some reason or other, there was some obligation, and so I flew home and gave them my van to drive home. Well, it broke down in Nebraska, Cozad, Nebraska, and they I don't know how they got. Oh, they all piled into Dave Marini's station wagon. We were caravanning, piled in bunches of people, and
Seven and a dog.
yeah, and
7 people and a dog
yeah,
in
and
a station
they
wagon.
drove, and I had to fly home or something like that. That's why, and my van was uh, abandoned in Cozad, Nebraska. I don't think I ever got it back.
No,
I,
like the
I
word
don't
is
remember.
they. I think they towed it to Lincoln, and then it went. They left it at a shop, and then eventually you. It was kind of the bill was big enough to where it wasn't really worth getting the car, from what I understood.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just don't think ever got it back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dave
Anyway,
told us that you left it there as payment.
Nice.
yeah. I don't remember the details of that thing, but all I remember is Cozad, Nebraska.
I had to look it up. I mean, I grew up in central Kansas, and I'd never heard anybody say anything about Cozad, Nebraska. And I was like, I wonder where that is. And then, obviously I have driven through there because I've driven on 80 through at least a good chunk of Nebraska. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize that was even a city.
Yeah, I just don't remember. I don't know if I ever got there and got it back or what. I complete blank. I'm drawing a blank, unfortunately.
Wow, it still makes for a
Well,
good story.
we can let you slide on that. I mean, you do have about 80 years worth, a little over 80 years worth of memories. So,
Yeah.
Well, and we want to thank you so much for taking some time here to share some of those memories with us. It's really enriching, and I hope that you had a good time. We had a I'm speaking for Mace here, but I had a great time just listening to you, listening to the stories, and just feeling the living history of disc golf and flying disc sports here in the room.
Yeah. Well, I very much appreciate you guys taking the time to try to hear the story because I'm awfully glad I wrote that book because I would not remember anything. I mean, I'm very, I find the one downside of being 82 is that the memory that you thought you had isn't there. it's
Yeah,
it's uh, it's waning, and if I hadn't got it down in writing back when I wrote the book, a lot of that stuff would have been lost. So I'm happy about that.
that's awesome.
yeah,
And we
without a doubt. I'm going to go ahead and send you my address because you had talked about when you publish again. I definitely want a copy, and I'm sure Paul would like one too.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I'll do
Sure.
whatever it takes. I'll send you the money order. I'll drive down to Rochester right now.
No,
On
you
your
guys.
on his bike. It's going
No,
to
you
On
take
my
him
guys.
about
bike.
3 weeks to get
You
there, but
guys
I'll,
want a copy of that book? If you don't have a copy of the book, send me your addresses and I'll send the book to you. Okay.
that would
thank
be
you.
great,
You got
Jeff.
my
That would be
That would
email
be
awesome.
address,
such a
right?
that'd
Yeah.
be a really good treat because that's one of the things. Like Paul mentioned at the beginning of the show that we really came into this thinking, oh yeah, we know a lot about disc golf, and for the first few months, literally, I mean, we interviewed so many people that were old friends of ours. I mean, for the longest time, probably for at least the first 6 shows, we didn't even have a script because we were talking with people we knew really well. and we'd spent a lot of time with. And the further we dug and the further we got into this, the more we started to realize, well, there's a lot of things we didn't consider, first of all. And then last year, when it wasn't this, it was actually in July, but I stopped in at the Masters World Championship in Flagstaff, primarily because I wanted to run into Tita and invite her on the show. I had met her earlier in the year there in Arizona, in Phoenix or Scottsdale actually, and so she invited me slash us to be involved with that Pioneer Women panel that they had at the U.S. Women's Championship in September in North Carolina in Burlington, and that just started the ball rolling. Us, excuse me, that just started the frisbee flying for us into the frisbee era,
Yeah.
and it's really been a pleasure, and it's really been an eye-opening experience for us because, again, I mean, I've got 27 majors as a staff member under my belt, and there's so many things that I've learned this year from interviewing folks from your era, including yourself, that I'm really grateful, and I really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for wanting to hear the story. I'm glad I could help a little bit.
Oh, you've helped a heck ton. Definitely, Jim. We really appreciate it. And we want to wish you all the best tonight and every night. And just keep doing what you continue to do. Keep spreading the light. Keep spreading the love.
Okay, and I appreciate you guys for continuing the ball just flying.
Yes.
Things going.
Right on. All right.
All
Well,
right.
you take care of yourself, sir.
I do got to
Good to
get
see
going. All right.
Guys.
Thanks again.
Thank
See
you,
you.
Jim, and have a good evening.
All right. Same with you.
All right.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Yeah.